Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius podcast, now part of the Finding Genius Foundation. I'm holding in my hand a book by Luke Burgis. It's called Wanting, the Power of Mimetic Desire in Everyday Life. And very interesting book. We're going to talk about why he wrote it and what it's about. So Luke, thanks for coming.
Hey, Rich, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, tell me a bit about your background and what was your inspiration to write the book, and then, we'll get into what it's about.
I'm an entrepreneur by experience, I guess you should say, not by education. I worked on Wall Street for a short period of time and left to go to California and enter the startup world. And I spent most of my 20s there, founded 4 companies and had some success, had some failure. But I've always been a very curious entrepreneur. I read like crazy, not just business stuff, classic literature, philosophy, theology, you name it. I've always kind of reached beyond and been interested in ideas. And one of the thinkers that captured my imagination more than any other was a French academic named René Girard, who also happened to be the mentor of co-founder of PayPal, Peter Thiel, while he was at Stanford. And his ideas have sort of been circulating in Silicon Valley for a very long time. I actually didn't learn about René Girard from anybody in the startup world or in Silicon Valley. I learned about him from a priest, believe it or not. And so Girard's, well, it was a lot less cool when I realized that everybody in the Valley had already known who this guy was. But Girard's ideas explained a lot of my own experience in life as an entrepreneur, as somebody who kind of felt whiplash in terms of my goals and my lifestyle and what I wanted. I would want one thing one day, and then the next I'd kind of lose passion and then take a different direction. And Girard's main idea, his big idea, was the concept of mimetic desire, the idea that human beings don't desire totally spontaneously and independently, but that we desire by finding models, people around us, and imitating the desires of other people, usually without knowing it. So I stumbled on Girard's thinking, and that's just the entry point into his thought. He has a lot of implications of this for human conflict and violence, but that one particular insight opened my eyes to a lot of the forces that were driving me in my life that I wasn't privy to before I read Girard.
Well, I guess maybe you just gave an example of one. Like you said, you felt, I don't know, I guess maybe embarrassed or like, oh, how come I didn't know about Girard and everyone else in Silicon Valley did? So that maybe gave you a mimetic desire to learn more about him.
Yeah. This is a long time ago. This is right around the time when Twitter just launched. And we kind of live in that world now, right? Where it's like there's elements of FOMO, not just with experiences and activities, but also with knowledge. Like people are looking to see if anybody else has said something and thinkers come and go, just like fashion trends and ideas come and go. And Girard's insight really explains a lot of this.
Well, now that you're aware of it, what started changing in your life? What did you notice, or how did this benefit you knowing this?
It gave me an awareness to not necessarily take all of my desires for granted, first of all. And I began to shed this hyper-individualistic, probably prideful idea of my own desires, that I know what I want and that I've arrived at these goals and my ideas and my lifestyle totally independently. So I kind of take a step back and I've created some distance where I can examine my desires. I can ask some questions about them, think about the origin of them, where they came from, what I'm really looking for. That's an important question. I think early in my startup days, I would have told you like, I want to change the world, but like, what does that even mean? I mean, it's just abstract, as everybody does in a sense. Everybody wants to do something positive. I mean, I would say these things, but deep down, I sort of like deeply wanted to have a certain kind of, I guess I wanted to be known, as this innovator or this certain kind of an entrepreneur and have this financial freedom. A bunch of things where once I achieved some of them, I realized that they had left me very empty, and that the model of an entrepreneur, like this, Platonic form of what it means to be an entrepreneur that had been held up to me, was driving my decision making. And never had I once stepped back and thought seriously about, well, where do I want to be when I'm, 40 years old? I'm coming up on that now. I just had never asked that question. I think we can just get like caught up in the day-to-day, week-to-week stuff and not think about where our desires are necessarily leading us.